Our next film is West of Memphis, which is a documentary detailing the apparent miscarriage of justice carried out against three young men who were convicted of the brutal killings of several young boys back in the early 90s. This story focuses not so much on the trials, which were covered very closely in some documentaries that HBO did back during that time. But this gives you more of an update on where they're at now, closer in this time with their appeal process, their personal lives, and even the spoiler eventual release. And then also gives you, what I really like about this movie is gives you a viable suspect for who likely committed the crimes. This film is still, like every good documentary, it has a point of view. It is worth noting that that several of the parents of the murdered boys still believe that these gentlemen were guilty. But I feel the filmmaker's point of view is certainly that they were innocent, and that's what it's pushing. But it's very well done. It's very compelling, and I think it makes a very good companion to the other three, the Paradise Lost trilogy of documentaries that HBO did. I would recommend for anyone who's interested to at least watch the third, the last one of those, and then, but really they're all excellent. And then watch this movie. So for me, it's a strong 3 out of 4 stars. But it's I feel like it's not the whole story. So I feel like with it being the companion piece to the Paradise Lost documentaries.
I don't think you're giving this movie its due credit. I found this movie to be fascinating. This movie is extremely thorough. I mean, it is exhaustively researched, and it details everything that happened, or as much as it can, in a 2.5 hour time limit. This is not a brief motion picture, but it contains so much information, and it is assembled so well. It is fascinating. And it deals from right before the crime to their eventual release, and you follow every single step of the way. And what I love about this movie is that it's fearless. Director Amy Berg has made a career on making documentaries that rip open the darkest, secrets that people have in our society, and she shows them all for everyone to see, and it's great. I applaud her for that. And she shows graphic crime scene photos. She shows, images of, the crying parents. She shows, the interview, the personal interviews with, the accused, during the trials and after the trials. And I thought, good, show it all. It makes it that much more impossible to ignore. And, when you watch this movie and you when you absorb everything the movie has to say and everything that happened, one thing is abundantly clear. These 3 young men did not receive fair trials. Our criminal justice system was founded so shams of trials like this did not happen. It was, religious zealotry, moral panic, felonious police and prosecutorial misconduct, or at least a good case can be made for that. And all mixed up in this totally senseless tragedy. And they found 3 perfect scapegoats is what happened. Yeah. And, they got pride and ego mixed up in this. This was basically a Murphy's Law of a situation where everything that could possibly have gone wrong, either intentionally or not, did. And 3 young men who I don't believe that they did it. I don't think they possibly could have, were sandbagged for simply dressing different and having different beliefs. And it took a lot of guts and determination to get them, out of jail. And I think one of the key moments in this movie is at the tail end when you see the Arkansas Attorney General. He's like, I'm kind of a shoot from the hip from the guy, and I think they did it, but I think this is the best thing they could, that is the best for everyone. I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, you have all this evidence, against you. There's no DNA evidence. There's a very good case that, the boys weren't intentionally sexually mutilated. It was, like
Animals.
Yeah, it was animals, and they can prove they were elsewhere, and you're still clinging to this, pointless, belief that they're guilty to cover your bases. But what bases are you covering? No one who could possibly know anything about this case could possibly, in a million years, believe that, they could have done it. I mean, this was an absolute farce. But I think that mentality is what locked these boys up. And I think that kind of, ideology and, is just what makes this case so dangerous. And I think by shedding light on that, by, illuminating on the cultural, the social, and the religious aspects of this, of West Memphis, Arkansas at the time, it basically allows us to understand why this could happen. And, the prosecutor was extremely ambitious. He basically said, this is just a quick and easy case where I can use to get elected into politics. And the police needed a scapegoat. And, I mean, basically a lot of people could have done the right thing, but through their own biases or because they just didn't care, they chose to do the wrong thing, and they made it seem like the wrong thing was the right thing just to suit their own ends. And that is what is perhaps the most despicable about this crime. Because yes, the three murder boys were victims, and it is tragic what happened to them. But Jesse Miss Kelly, Damien Eccles, and God, why can't I think of his name? Jason Baldwin. They were victims too. They were victims of the people who could do right and chose not to. And that is what I found so disturbing about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the importance of this story and the lessons, hopefully learned, cannot be understated. My only, like I said, I grew up with the story broken down through those three documentaries over the years. There was some compelling time where one of the fathers, because he was such an odd character, was really seriously looked at.
Yes,
and that's looked at. So really, it's not so much that. So I'm not knocking the. I feel like the film simply, because it scans over that beginning, that trial phase at the beginning a little faster than I feel like it's not the whole story. So I feel like it goes. It's like a bookend, even though it's separate people, but to the entire story. And the miscarriage of justice is really
an outrage.
It's outrageous. It's scary. And even in their release, they do not get justice. They do not get. They do not get. You could never make up for taking that much time of someone's life.
And they're basically forced to submit a guilty plea that is a complete slap in the face. But they had no other choice.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more outrageous. But the good news is that they're out and they can, try to rebuild their lives. But, what I find disturbing is that no one who put them in there, and it outlines a lot of horrible police work, evidence from charlatans, and prosecutorial misconduct. I mean, what the prosecutor did was unconscionable, if not illegal. None of them were in any way punished for what they did. And now they can't see restitution for what they went through. And that is just awful. The founding fathers of our country are surely turning over in their graves because this is exactly what they wanted to prevent.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely. And I felt like with the appeals, their appeal going back to the original judge to be denied is such, I mean, you know, what's the point even? It feels like the appeals process is just a joke, just another rubber stamp, you know, denied to keep them in. And that's for a lot of people when there was evidence, you know. Again, I agree with you that these young men were innocent, but even that aside, they did not get a fair trial. They did not get the legal process here should scare anybody.
Yes, it's a complete bastardization of what our country was founded upon, because it relied on people, rather than thinking on logic and the evidence, it relied on them just going on impulse and fear and just this like kind of blunt shoot from the hip, impulse. This is how it is, and we're sticking to it, and regardless in the face of logic or common sense. And that is not how our justice system works. And that kind of mentality is what this documentary illuminates, and why it's so, why it just flies in the face of our justice system, our legal system, but that kind of mentality was just so pervasive in this community, and it wrecked, these three young men's lives. 16 years in prison for a crime they did not commit. And what I like about this movie is that it doesn't forget the pain that the parents feel. It doesn't, it gives them their due. It gives them their voice. And it allows them to think about how they feel about these boys that they were basically led to demonize in their own minds and cast blame on for the deaths of their children, that they might not be innocent. It allows them to give their opinions on that, and I find that really refreshing. Yeah. One criticism I have is that it's divided by topic. What happened, after, and then who they think it is. And it's not always, the transitions between these topics aren't always clean. And I think it spends a little too much time, going after its own thesis, but as a social document and as a cry for justice and as a warning for what can happen when everyone looks the other way, because it's easy, it's a great film. I give it 3.5.
Okay. I'm going to stick with my 3, but again, that's a strong recommendation, and also like to give credit to Peter Jackson for producing this,
and Fran Walsh.
Yes, and his wife Fran Walsh, because they made this film where, like I said, the other 3 documentaries are there, even though they don't.
This one has the benefit of hindsight.
Yes, it has the benefit of hindsight, but it gives Damien Eccles particularly a chance to be a part of his own story. So I know he's out there, with the film. He was out there for showing.
Yeah.
I think he's still doing work on behalf of, to raise awareness for the issues that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really great, because if it had just been the documentaries, then, and not just everything put together in this film, it wouldn't have been as easy to go around and spread that message the way that
exactly.
it should be done. So a lot of credit to them.
And you're right. There is a lot going on. This is a very complicated case, but it's for the most part cleanly told. We're led step by step. What happened, what it meant, what people thought about it, and being able to do that is really impressive. But I think it's a great movie. I think everyone should see it.
Absolutely.